both have like pros and cons. Like well, you know what? I'll answer it. I'll make a new video about this right now. So in the chat here today, we got a question about when you're starting the airbrush, do you like to start with like regular paint or pre-mixed paint? And I think that's a good question. I think I think a lot of people they come with this question, when they start airbrushing, and it's one of those dumb things of there are pros and cons to each. So you kind of have to like pick a fight. I'll tell you my full opinion is it is much better to start thinning your paint yourself than start using this, and we'll get to that in a minute. However, the pre-mixed one offer like a really good base. Okay, these things they are 90% of the time they work all the time. It's really good. It offers you a good base. The biggest problem with these is if they're not right. First of all, you're not gonna know until it's too late, because if you're new to the airbrush, you have no clue what makes a good mix or pre-mixed. So sometimes, and that's kind of not necessarily often the case, but usually what happens is these things are too thin. And too thin is kind of a bitch in this case, because what are you going to do? You cannot add more paint. That's kind of the problem. And that is my biggest grip with pre-mixed paints is if it's too thin, you're shit out of luck. Now this is kind of I call this the contrast problem, where it's kind of you kind of have to know. For example, this is one of my favorite like paint pots ever, like the Army Painter Air White, because I use it with a brush as well. So this one I know is like really good. But for example, their purple range from the Army Painter, the what's it called, Alien Purple, I think, and then that like triplet, whatever they call these things. The purple one is really not great. Now it kind of sucks because if you don't know and you're starting with an airbrush, and then you get the purple because you're painting, I don't know, Harlequins or whatever, and then you start airbrushing, something's not working, and then you go, well, it can't be the paint. It's paint made for airbrush. And then you try to figure out what's wrong, but it was the paint all along. That's kind of the issue with like pre-mixed paint, is you're kind of like stuck with it. And then if it's too thick, which also rarely but also happens, you have to thin it down. Well, shit, I bought that because I didn't want to learn how to thin it down in the first place. It's a great tool to have. However, I like to thin my own stuff. First of all, it's like there's literally two things that you have to master when you buy an airbrush. Airbrush is very simple. It saves a lot of time. There's two hard things. First of all is trigger control, right? Like controlling and keeping like your needle pulled to get like the spray size that you want, and thinning your paint. Now, learning two things is kind of not, the end of the world. So if you watch our other videos, like learn how to thin paints and whatnot, in the YouTube channel, you get to see like kind of how to speed up that process, because it is a bitch and it is a learning curve. However, learning it one time, it kind of sets you up, and then you can use these crazy things and figure out, oh, this one here is, well, this one's perfect. This one, please never change. But I don't have any other one, but like, oh, this one is too thin, so now I know, and then I can just add like some other extra paint next to it. Or, oh, this one is too thick, so I need to thin it down a little bit more. I cannot just use it straight out of the pot, even though it says pour me straight out of the pot, right? So that's kind of my biggest thing in between the two. And the other thing that's like kind of unspoken a little bit is sometimes the colors don't match. Games Workshop and Vallejo are like the biggest culprits in that regards. And that's one thing that I feel Army Painter does better than anything else. Like their biggest quality is they match. Like this color here, the gunmetal, if you use the shaker can and if you use this and if you use the air version, they're like exactly the same. Whereas Vallejo are terrible at this. Like it's an insane brand, but Gory Red, for example, the regular Gory Red, the spray Gory Red, and the Airbrush Gory Red, they're all different. Like not a huge difference, but enough that you know. And that pisses me off to no end because if I airbrush something and I make a little mistake and I need to touch it up, I want to have the same color. I don't want to have almost the same color, but not quite. So you can always tell that you messed up. I don't want that reminder in my life. I don't need this. This sounds like a good time to remind everybody on YouTube that if you have questions, you can just drop them somewhere, and eventually